towels around their heads. They're screaming things and blowing themselves up. But what can we really attest from this? What are certain things that are going on here that we should care about? Today my question is, should we worry about the tensions between Iran and Israel? To this I'm going to go over 3 main points. First, I'm going to talk about the past. I'm going to talk about Iran, I'm going to talk about Israel, I'm going to talk about their tensions and why they've grown to hate each other. Next, I'm going to talk about the tensions today. What's going on? Why am I talking about this? Lastly, I'm going to answer the question more specifically, should we really be worried about this? Now let's start. First point. Iran, Israel. What do we know about these countries? Let's start with Israel. Now, after World War II, 1945, we of course know about the Holocaust, and we know about the absolute and utter genocide of the Jewish population. Now, the United Nations, which was obviously, as I'm sure you can attest, was nations uniting to help solve world problems. The Jewish population needed somewhere to go. They needed to know where they need to go since they were ripped from their countries, ripped from their homes, and murdered. Now, Britain came up and said, we own this interesting country next to the Red Sea that's Palestine. We own this country, and we went in and we told the Palestinians, we said, I'm sorry, but we're giving up your country. These people need somewhere to go. You're going to have to learn to live together. Now, as I'm sure, as all of you can tell, that started a civil war. Absolute and utter bloodshed. Britain gave up. It was the Jews on their own. So what did we do? As Ronald Reagan stated, we were the beacon of hope. As if you were here for the last debate, you heard me say, we helped them. We led from behind, we aided them, and we got them their country, which is now Israel, our kid. Let's talk about Iran. What is Iran? Iran used to be a country run by the Plendelet dynasty, which for the longest time was friends with the Jewish population, friends with Israel. But in this situation, there was an uprising. A country was overthrown by its people who was somewhat depressed by the dynasty, somewhat depressed by their leaders. And since they saw their closest friend Israel, immediately hated everything that was close to the leaders of this country. Now we can see the close tensions between these countries. We can see why they don't like each other. Because right off the bat, they just, I don't like you, I don't like what you stand for, and I don't like the threats you're making. The threats you're making. Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. He gave a speech, a pretty funny speech. He said, ladies and gentlemen, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, and if it looks like a duck, what is it? It's a duck. But in this case, it's a nuclear duck. That's quoted verbatim. Now, the funny thing about that is, what was he talking about? The nuclear proliferation in Iran. What has Iran been doing? They have been dealing under the table with Russia for the longest time. The United Nations, North Atlantic Treaty Organization has told them multiple times, if you don't stop, we're going to sanction you. We're going to stop your trade, and we are going to halt all of your gross domestic product. Because they're dealing enrichment materials under the table to a hostile Arab nation. Funny thing about this is multiple different times, as I stated, they made threats. Now, the president of Iran has made multiple different threats. Ahmadinejad. But the religious leader, whereas we all know in the Middle East is run by religion, whereas the second person is the person who runs the country, the Ayatollah, said that we will wipe the dogs of Israel back to the ocean from which they came, making blatant threats on television, national television, telling them if they had the chance, if they had the nuclear weapons, they would eradicate them. Because that's what they deserve in their minds. Now, multiple different times, Benjamin Netanyahu has come to America, almost pleading with Obama to do something about this. They have bunkers a mile underground from all surveillance, from all prying eyes, for nuclear research. A United Nations watchdog, which after World War II, since the Germans were making massive different innovations like jets, they were trying to make a nuclear bomb as well. That's where we got the idea from. They were trying to make a nuclear bomb as well. So we had United Nations watchdogs come in, do reports, review, see what's going on. In 2006, a base was raided because of their malicious intents. We retrieved the laptop and coded it. We found out that in the laptop, they were trying to proliferate and make nuclear warheads and nuclear armaments for malicious intent. In 2012, the watchdog did his review again, and he concurred with this 2006 evidence. They are making armaments, and they are making nuclear warheads, bent on destroying Israel. The dogs that belong in the ocean in their minds. Now, should we worry about this? Why am I even talking about this? Should we care? In the Middle East, way over there, or way over here? Why should we care? Now, when I explained basically Israel, and I explained how it was created, funny how I mentioned how we helped them, our lead from behind. We funded them, we raised them, they're our child. Now, in an Arab language I'm not going to dare to try to pronounce because I'd rather not embarrass myself, it translates in English as they say that Israel, their nickname is Little Satan. Guess who Big Satan is? America. Hegemony. What's hegemony? If you're here for the last debate, I explained how it shows our global status, our reputation, and how we look on the global scale to every other country. Let's just dumb this down to how a parent is. What kind of parent would you be if you just let your son get beat up and killed? What kind of nation would we be if we let our creation get bombed and destroyed? Whereas multiple different times, we have stated that if they do make any advances, malicious advances, we will act upon this. But not until then. Whereas Benjamin Netanyahu, has come multiple times to plead with Obama. Even depicted in political cartoons explaining if you're not going to dance, you might as well just swing along to my beat. Whereas Netanyahu's beating on a timpani that said, Iran war drums. Should we care about this? Should we care what's going to happen? Yes. Because absolutely and utterly Obama has concurred that if there are any malicious advances on Israel, we are going to war. So let's sum everything up. Bring everything together. I explained Israel. I explained how they are a creation. I explained Iran. I explained how they were overthrown. The Plendelev dynasty was overthrown. And I explained how the new government hated Israel for their support. I explained what's going on right now. Nuclear proliferation. Things being sold under the table. UN watchdogs concurring with evidence that says that they are maliciously trying to proliferate nuclear weapons, concentrate uranium, use it in a warhead, and destroy Israel. I went on to explain how Obama has said that if this is happening, and if there are any malicious advances towards Israel, that we will go to war and we will defend them. We will defend our creation. Should we be worried about the tensions growing between Iran and Israel? Of course we should. We could go to war again. Thank you.